Okay, careful how you start. I would, okay, I'll let you do it. Yep. So, what up, guys? So, yeah, anyways, here at my dad's shop. In today's video, we are going to be installing my Flarespace flare panels. Finally, this project has been on my to-do list literally for months, and I have had all sorts of snafus and delays. They shipped me the wrong product twice.
Hi, Eric. It's Cassie from Flarespace.
Gotcha. Hi.
Hi. I did reach out to several of the people over there that do our flares for us, and also the owner of the company. I haven't heard anything back from them, but I just sent a rush order in to go ahead and try to get this out to you again, and then the right way. I know this is really a pain, and I do apologize.
So a total of 3 shipments, but we finally got there. Also, if you guys are going to install Flarespace panels yourselves, you're going to need to get them painted to match your vehicle. They don't come painted any particular color. They're just the raw fiberglass, which is kind of like a grayish color. So I figured it would be easier and less expensive to get it painted before I attach it to the vehicle. It's 3 o'clock. We'll see how long this takes. I'm guessing that this project is going to be about 4 hours.
My name is Eric Johnson, and welcome to my channel. In 2021, I bought a Ford Transit cargo van so that I could convert it into the off-grid home of my dreams. I'll be documenting and sharing everything about this DIY van conversion. If you'd like to follow along, by all means, hit that subscribe button. So guys, this very first step is really just kind of roughing up the exterior surface of the panels so that the paint has a solid surface to adhere to. We were just using some Brillo pads or Scotch-Brite pads, and then he put a degreaser, kind of similar to like isopropyl alcohol, just something to make sure that it's a nice clean surface. And then these are just some of the behind the scenes of his mixing the paint and kind of the equipment that he used. Everything is done by weight, and I thought it was super interesting that you'll see here he's adding black paint, even though of course we're painting it to match it white. And then these are his 2 adorable dogs. This is the mom. She was the braver of the 2. And then this is the son, Mushu. Mushu was too chicken to let me pet him until his mom came by and was getting some attention, and then he figured it was safe. And this dope little artwork, this was something that one of George's friends made him just to hold his paint gun. I thought it was so cool. So now we're really getting into the actual prep, the immediate prep before the paint. I think, again, this is just that degreaser one last time to try and make sure that it's nice and clear. And then this, I believe it was a primer coat that he put down first. And then once he had the primer coat on both panels, then you'll see he goes in, and here he's putting in the actual color coat. And this is still not even the last coat. He, after this, put on a clear coat, but I didn't stay in the room for the clear coat. The clear coat creates a lot more fumes, even despite the way that this room is designed, which was actually pretty cool. Right above me where I was filming everything are these 2 main air kind of intakes. They're bringing in fresh air, and then where he was working at the bottom, you'll see there is like an air exhaust that's taking all of the air and the dust particles and the paint particles, and it's pulling it out of the room, so it keeps a nice unidimensional airflow throughout the room. The end results look amazing, and if you ever need any auto body paint work, I cannot recommend George any higher. He was awesome to work with, so go ahead and hit him up. But now we are a couple days later, and I finally made it up to my dad's shop in Lehigh area. The shop was humongous. It was more than big enough to fit my van, thankfully, and it gave me just a warm, controlled space to work on the van where I didn't have to worry about the weather while we were cutting out the holes, and at least for the first couple days, getting that adhesive to cure. Now, these are all the tools that you're going to need, and as always, there's a link to the description down below, so you don't need to worry about getting all of these. The main highlights here, I finally got an appropriate drill bit, lubricant, and then we're using Sikaflex 510 as the adhesive that was provided by Flarespace. And then I also finally wised up and just got a huge pack of jigsaw blades. But jumping into the very first step, once you have your freshly painted flares ready, you want to just double check that they're going to go ahead and fit the exterior profile of your van. So go ahead and hold up that panel to the van just as like a last final check. Make sure that there's not any grievous issues before you go ahead and cut a major hole. And thankfully my brother had the very smart idea to cover these kind of open cavities beneath where we're going to be cutting, just to try and minimize the spread of all those metal filings and chips. And as with all major holes that you cut into your vehicle, you want to go ahead and start off with a couple of just pilot holes for the blade of your jigsaw. And that's all we're doing here, just kind of cutting a variety of start and end points for that jigsaw blade.
Okay, you ready?
No.
Do it anyway?
Yeah. Okay, careful how you start. I would, okay, I'll let you do it. Yep. So,
I wouldn't recommend trying to use a circular saw to cut a hole in a van, but if you do want to use a circular saw in general, make sure that the nose of the saw is resting on your material when you're doing that drop-in cut, not the heel, and it shouldn't kick like it did with my brother. But when it comes to cutting holes in a van, hands down, the jigsaw really is just king. It's the cleanest, easiest way, so I would by far just say use the jigsaw. Yeah, so some advice I would give is whenever you complete a section, whether it's just any sort of straightaway, I would recommend going in and taping over that cut. And kind of the method my brother used there was actually smarter than what I've been doing. So instead of taping across the seam, he just went along the seam. And that actually worked great. Also, you might have noticed before we started the cut, we went ahead and marked each of these sort of support beams with a marker and a straight edge, just to give us kind of a clear cut line.
You ready?
Ta-da! We cut a hole in a van. But to clean up that fresh cut, we did need to kind of file it down. I was using a hand rasp. My brother used, I believe it's called a straight die grinder. The die grinder seemed to do a fantastic job, and if you want to save yourself a lot of time, that seems like a pretty worthwhile tool to get.
it's like filmception. That battery shouldn't even be on. Anyways, we got a hole cut. Isn't that great? Anyways, we're gonna go get dinner. Should be back in like an hour or two. Famous last words. My dad's an astronaut.
I need your help.
I'm waiting on you, buddy.
I want to do something cool.
Yeah, really. Put me to work.
So this is my brother's first time making a major cut in the vehicle, and I think he was a little overexcited. I did have some advice for him that he wasn't quite patient enough to listen to. You'll see here.
So,
First off,
don't pull out when it's still going. So, you want me to go in closer though, right?
yes. Okay, also here, when you go in, I like to have it rested in place and then turn it on. Always keep your thumb near the on and off trigger so that you can turn it off and on. Because just like you did here, see how it hit.
Yeah, so the key pieces of advice there are, first and foremost, don't start the saw until you have it resting against the material. That's just a lot safer. And then also, always keep your finger on the on and off switch. That way you're ready to turn it off as soon as anything goes awry. Also, listen to your younger brother when he's trying to give you advice.
Okay, off. Blade broke.
Now, to be fair, cutting these corners really is the hardest part of this entire cutting process, and only breaking one blade on his first try was pretty impressive.
You recording that?
Yes.
So as always, once you cut an opening, you want to go ahead and clean that edge up, and then once you finish sanding or grinding down that rough edge, go ahead and put a little bit of Rust-Oleum paint to protect it from rusting. Now this next step is just kind of scuffing up the surfaces that we're going to be putting the adhesive on, so both the flares and the vehicle, and we just used a 220 sandpaper for that. And then you need to go ahead and clean that up. We used acetone here just a little bit. Isopropyl alcohol would have been better, but I forgot to bring it, so just a touch of acetone and then wipe it off.
I'm getting high on the fumes.
But in all seriousness, guys, you should probably wear safety gear and make sure you're doing this in like a well-ventilated area. So for this actual install step, what we did as far as the prep was we went ahead and laid out several strands of tape. Now again, this is just frog tape, kind of painter's tape, but it works really well. And we had some both inside and outside of the van to try and help press, or I guess adhere it to the vehicle, keep the tension against it, and also help hold the weight up. And then we're going in and pressing along all the seams, and you'll see right here actually where the lights leaked through, there was still a seam, so we're going in and filling in from the inside with that same adhesive, kind of creating a second seal point or a second layer. And we actually did this all around the opening, so sides and top as well. And then the second time around, we went ahead and laid down a little bit more material, but as you can see, we did keep really closely to the inside edge so that if it does squeeze, it wasn't likely to squeeze out to the exterior of the vehicle.
All right, guys, it's been a couple of days since we, well, not even quite a couple of days. It's been like 32 hours. It's been a day and a morning since we installed the flares. The adhesive, depending on the thickness, I looked up the data sheet, guessing that we have about 3 millimeters as far as how thick we laid down the bead. Going off that 3 millimeter thickness, the data sheet says that it'll take about 72 hours to fully cure, and that's also assuming a 50% relative humidity and I think something like 70-degree temperatures. Now, thankfully, my van has been inside for the last 24 hours or so. Just earlier this morning, I got pulled outside. So even though it's only 33 degrees, it hasn't been outside in this weather for too much. I'm hoping that it's cured enough that I can at least undo these kind of mill supports and get the windows in, because it's supposed to rain / maybe snow, depending on the temperature, in a couple of hours. So I gotta get these windows in. So I just opened up these windows and it doesn't look like there's any included installation instructions, but they do seem to have like a clamp ring, just like the T-vent window installed here. So far, I'm also not even finding the hardware. I'm assuming they have to have hardware. These are the Flarespace version. I still have the film on. They said that I basically had to buy their version and that I could not use the CR Lawrence awning, the 1033 awning, because that it was, one of the dimensions was off. I don't know if it was the height or the width, but basically that it wouldn't fit in their own flare. Part of me feels like that was kind of intentional on their part, but whatever. So I've got theirs. Honestly, it does not feel or look that nicely made. The control knob on this thing, total plastic. It looks like there might be just some stamp metal right here in the base. It doesn't really have all that nice aesthetic to it, but it'll do. Anyways, I just checked the first box, no included hardware. So I'm gonna go open up the second box and see if it has both. Here's hoping. Oh gosh, okay. We have one bag of hardware. The packaging on this is not at all impressive. So just to show you, one of them already broke. That's all that's holding your mirror in. Like I said, this guy already broke. I mean, of course this is thick enough, but like at the top, yeah, and this guy broke as well. Just not impressed. Oh golly. Each one needs 15 screws. I think they only gave us 15 screws. So I just got screwed out of one thing of hardware. That is really unfortunate. This is now shipping snafu number 4 from Flarespace. So That's sick. These look like they're about a 1/2 inch self-tapping. I don't know, it's like a number 6, I think, maybe. Yeah, so I think that's like a number 6. Now I gotta go find a box of these somewhere before it rains in like 2 hours. This is just sick.
So I do a lot better job of this on the second window, but on this first one, I'll still kind of figuring it out. But you want to try and make sure that before you screw everything down, that you have the window positioned level relative to the opening, and then also centered. So top, bottom, and left and right. The easiest way that I found was actually just doing a single piece of tape across the top rather than doing these 2 vertical strips.
So frustrated. I feel like I've been given the wrong tools for this job. I do not know why these are self. Are you gonna do anything besides strip a shit ton of metal? Is that all you're gonna do? Nothing. What a freaking joke. I'm in such a bad mood.
Yeah, I definitely didn't get my coffee this morning. So Eric's pretty cranky at this point. The hardware really did give me quite a bit of struggle, and I am still not certain if I feel like the self-drilling or self-tapping screws that they provided was the best solution. There were 2 spots where it did seem to matter because the positioning of where these screws line up. There were, like I said, 2 spots where the metal, it didn't have a groove and it actually was drilling through quite a bit of metal. Other than that, though, a regular length screw did seem to work best, which you'll see on the second window because I had to get my own hardware and I got a whole variety.
Ran into Home Depot and I got an assortment of hardware. Now, 1/2 inch not self-tapping, 3/4 not self-tapping, and then 5/8 self-tapping. Sorry for all the noise. Anyway, their self-tapping is probably about 1/8 of an inch longer. I don't know if that's gonna be an issue.
So this is that second process I was referring to where I think I did a better job here with just a single piece of tape across the top, but don't have it adhered to the vehicle. That lets you kind of adjust the window, get it nice and centered, top and bottom, left and right, and then go ahead and adhere that tape.
You're looking good.
Yeah, so this is one of those spots where the screw hole just happens to line up right where there's some sort of like a bridge, but effectively you're not going just directly into the normal channel that these screws thread into, and so there was a whole ton of resistance. And you can see here just all the metal shavings because it really was boring through quite a bit of metal. And this is something that I never ran into with the, again, the CR Lawrence install. So, you know, just a lot more challenges, I guess, with this install to be aware of. And that is pretty much it, you guys. All I'm really doing here at this point is just tightening down all of these screws. One thing that I did different from the first window was I went ahead and installed all of the screws, at least partially, before really trying to tighten down any of them in particular. And then I tried to go in a non-concentric pattern as far as how I was tightening it, but it was somewhat subjected to these corners. They were just so, it was such a far stretch relative to the clamp ring, to the actual grooves that they needed to install into, that sometimes you had to tighten a neighboring screw just to get it close enough to really get that screw to engage. This is the main reason why those self-drilling hardware really made that impossible, because you can't even get that threading to engage because there is no threading at the tip. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the hardware that they did provide. End result, it looks all right. You know, it's not bad. These corners in particular, I was the most kind of disappointed in. You can really see that the clamp ring is just not a very accurate fit relative to the window. Like I said, in comparison to that CR Lawrence, I know I keep bringing them up, but it's the best thing that I have to compare it to, and in comparison, there really is not much of a comparison.
I gotta say, I'm pretty disappointed in the windows. maybe if I hadn't seen the CR Lawrence and just kind of like the build quality of those for my sliding door window, in comparison, the Flarespace brand awning style window, I should say, feels so much grittier. Just the mechanical action of opening and closing. Like you can see the kind of internal mechanisms, and the gears on there are pretty chunky and it doesn't really feel that nice. The handle, but it turns out both windows do have plastic handles, but the Flarespace brand one feels like a really cheap plastic. It's really rough, you know, it just doesn't feel nice. Whereas the other one, it feels like they've done something to, you know, sand it down, kind of make the texture softer to where I didn't even initially think of it as being plastic. Like it just didn't register. Whereas this one, the second I touched it, I was like, that's kind of a cheap plastic feel. So, bit of a bummer. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for sticking around till the end. Quickly, let's just get into a summary of the install. As far as time, I think the total project, including the windows with the hassles and the issues, the hardware problems I ran into, I'm guessing that the overall holes and the adhesive for both sides was about 6-ish hours. It was a little bit longer than I anticipated. And then the window installs, those actually took me about 2 to 3 hours in total. Like I said, mostly because of the hardware issues, you know, trip to Home Depot and some other stuff, but about 9 hours or so in total. And that includes with the help of my older brother, Joe. So big thank you to Joe for helping me. You guys don't really see, but between cuts, I'm totally putting my hood on because it's 18 degrees out here and I am not from like the Northeast, so I can't handle this cold. My nose is runny, my hands are numb. Oh, hi, Ma. What are you doing out here? You be careful.
I'm being careful.
You behave?
Hot chocolate and a tissue in case you
Oh,
have a dripping
you
nose.
saw that my nose was dripping.
No, I just know it's cold.
Thanks, Ma. Guys, there's some pretty big perks to doing your van build in your mom's backyard. Quick, hide the evidence. That never happened. So getting into the financial breakdown for this project, to date, this has been the biggest, most expensive project that I've undertaken. The flares themselves plus shipping were $1,930. Getting it color matched as far as the painting, that was $300. The windows, the two windows, so driver and passenger side, that was $590. And then just the saw blades that we went through, so I'm not including like the whole package, was, I'm guessing, about $6. So in total, the project was $2,826, or 7.79% of my entire anticipated budget. So almost 8% of my budget. So really hands down, the biggest thing thus far. Outside of my electrical system, I don't know if there's too many other components that are really going to be this large of a percentage of my budget. So this was a really big investment to try and gain what really amounts to about 5 extra inches, maybe 6 inches. So just double checked. Yeah, the widest part kind of at the middle, where just the window panel would be and roughly where your bed's going to be, is 77 inches. Now, the way that these flares are designed, they taper, and so they're actually wider in the back than they are up front. So right here, you're actually only gain about 2.5 inches. So you go from 77 inches to 79.5 with the two flares. Back here at the widest point, it was 80.5 inches. So you're gaining 3.5 inches in total for the Ford Transit flares. Now, I think the Mercedes Sprinter flares do give you a little bit extra, but for 3.5 inches, yeah, I'm not really so sure it was worth it, honestly. To, you know, everything now said and done, looking back, the whole point is that it does basically allow me the 3 inches so I can come back and add in insulation. And I'll probably end up adding at least 4 or so inches of insulation. And so the net result is that the head to toe, I'm probably going to be somewhere around the 75, 76 inches in total, which should be more than enough for me at 5'10". If I was taller, I would probably feel like those 3 inches gained are, you know, a lot more important. But if you're less than like 6'2" or something like that, you know, I don't really know if it's 100% worth it, especially given the cost and all the various other categories that you could put what is almost $3,000. I mean, a huge percentage of my budget. If I was doing this all over again from scratch, I probably would not go with the Flarespace panels. I would still go with the 2 bunk style awning windows. I would not get the Flarespace versions. I would definitely just get the CR Lawrence ones. For someone else, like I said, if you're taller than I am, you know, in that 6 foot plus, this is probably a much more worthwhile investment, but at 5'10", I'm just not so sure it was worth it. If you guys enjoyed this video, you might enjoy this video right here, where I talk about installing my T-vent CR Lawrence sliding door window. Or if you're looking for something kind of more theoretical, then you might enjoy this video here where I talk about my installation strategy for my van as a whole. Anyways, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.